topic is, this house believes that America should celebrate the use of PRISM for our security.
We regret the invasion of privacy and warrantless espionage. This debate is not about privacy but national security. Some even believe that the PRISM program fulfills the government's role to protect its citizens from terrorists and other domestic threats. So let me first define important terms. PRISM, a data mining program which collects information from citizens through social networking sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Skype, and etc. Celebrate, believe in the benefits and the merits of PRISM program. And lastly, national security. What is national security? It refers to the protection of citizens from domestic threats and terrorist threats. So this is a value judgment debate regarding the merits of the PRISM program within the context of the United States. So we are going to discuss to you our important arguments. First is PRISM is an essential tool for protection, and next is privacy is intangible harm in the case of national security. PRISM is an essential tool for protection. Why is it an essential tool for protection? Because in the internet, there's a lot of social networking sites. And with this, in the social networking sites, terrorists can communicate here, and it's an avenue for communication. Terrorist threats can exist over the internet, and the government therefore has to mandate the protection of its people from these threats. Terrorists can change their methods of communication, and with this, the government has to adapt to new methods to protect its people. And next, the internet is a new method where terrorists can already communicate, and they can make their tactics here. They can formulate wherever. I'll take your quote later. This is where they can protect the people. And via PRISM program, the government is able to protect attacks from occurring. This thus makes a valuable tool for security and a valuable tool for such. So the PRISM program is able to protect the people. That is what we want to prove in Santiago, in the government side, that it is a program to be able to protect the people. For example, in the British government, after the 2005 London bombing, they implemented already the Tempora program. The Tempora internet program is like an internet surveillance program that not monitors. It prevents terrorist attacks to happen because they monitor what's ever happening in the social networking sites. Aside from that, it further proves that the program will become effective. This argument shows that the PRISM program will become effective because it has already been proven in the UK that it's effective. It already monitors the UK. Why can't it be implemented in the United States? Wait, I'm going to discuss the second argument after that. Next argument, privacy is an intangible harm in the case of national security. We believe that the government should be able to collect information from social networking sites because activities on these sites are potentially important in maintaining national security. This information is used for investigation and preventing terrorist attacks. Like what we said, this is not, it's not about privacy, it's about national security. We're very concerned with the protection of the people. Privacy, I'll finish with the second argument. Privacy itself is an abstract concept and can be curbed when the government finds it necessary in order to protect its people. The information, however, is only accessed when necessary. We do not believe that the government will access information that's irrelevant to terrorist attacks or irrelevant. They will only look into these issues if there's a red flag already. The government is the most credible actor to access this information, given that the possible threats that can occur. The National Security Agency is credible. Employees will access this information when red flags are raised. If you are a possible terrorist or domestic threat, in larger scheme of things, this information will benefit society and government. It's better to be able to fulfill this and mandate for the protection of its people.
Are you saying that you don't care about the Constitution, people's rights to privacy?
It's not about, since we already defined it, it's not about privacy, it's about national security. So you're saying that you're going to risk the privacy, you're going to care about your pride rather than the protection of the people? And so with this, to conclude my case, we further believe that the United States should celebrate the implementation of this PRISM program. And with that, the rest of it.
You said that it's not not just about privacy, it's about national security. Of course, it's about privacy because you're taking away the right to privacy.
Sure.
Why do people want to keep things private? We believe that they are not comfortable with people knowing everything about what they do. They're not, bits and pieces of info can be misinterpreted by others, and people might not know who's collecting the information and how they might profit from it. Like, for example, your online data is stored indefinitely. Therefore, info could be used in unexpected ways. So why is privacy important to us? Privacy is protecting our ability to make informed decisions about how our information is shared. So basically, you're able to control the information about yourselves. So why does prison take away privacy? Basically, it boils down to their surveillance systems. The collection of data, they tap phone lines, no, thank you. They tap phone lines, they record your chat on Skype, or they get your chats and stuff like that. But what you see is that it is there to protect America. Majority of the people use this for security. But we see that majority of the people, their rights are being infringed. Their right to privacy is being taken away from them. So, as a person who pays taxes and contributes to the economy, why should I easily be accused as a criminal? So we see here that you violate the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the freedom of speech or liberty. The government monitors everything that you do. You also violate the Fourth Amendment, where you prohibit unreasonable searches and seizures to require a warrant that is sanctioned by the probable cause. This brings me to my second argument. The right to due process. Due process ensures that the government can doesn't step on your rights. The Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guarantees the U.S. citizens protection by assuring them due process of the law. The Fourth Amendment also protects them from unreasonable searches by requiring the government to secure warrants that are only given if there is a probable cause. Prison violates these both amendments because it does not allow U.S. citizens due process, and it even gives the government power to make unwarranted searches. Furthermore, because the government is allowed to look into private data of the citizens before securing a warrant, it reverses the legal principle of a person being innocent until proven guilty. With prison, there's an assumption that the U.S. citizens might be guilty and should be checked before leaving them of that possibility of being guilty. Without due process, basic rights are hampered. Mr. Speaker, we must remember that the U.S. Constitution guarantees their students those rights in order to maintain the checks and balances among the government and the citizens. By violating these rights and allowing the U.S. government to be above due process, Americans will be given unlimited powers. Why? Because without due process, the government will not need judicial courts or to execute privacy violating actions. This will also make Americans open to intimidation and threats from its own government that may use information they gather against their own citizens. America will not be assured the protection that the right due process supposedly gives them. So how can you trust the government if that is the way? Mr. Speaker, we also believe that this policy causes the U.S. citizens distrust in their government. For how can its people trust in a government that violates their rights and its own constitution that asserts protection to its people? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. What opposition want to talk to you about is this idea of liberty, how we want to effectively work in society. But the idea is that liberty cannot exist without security. Liberty cannot exist while terrorists are threatening to bomb New York City because they can talk over the internet and that the government is not able to do anything. All they talked to you about was this idea of how we have privacy. But there is one big question. What is the point of privacy? There is no tangibility coming from their side because in this context, all we can assume is that we're hurting the feelings of people because because the government might be able to see your naked photos on Facebook. But the idea behind this is why is this weighed in? What is the weight of this when the government is able to protect you you and your liberties so that you may be able to function properly in society. We believe that it is well within the government's mandate to protect people because we have a moral imperative because of all these terrorist threats that happen. They talk to you about these ideas of probable cause, they talk to you about these ideas of criminal justice. We think we're conceded, all of these are important, and that we can defend this properly on government side. What I'm going to be talking to you about in this debate are two things. Number one, I'm going to be talking to you about why the prison program is an extension of our rights. It allows us to properly function in society. It allows us to be protected from certain harms from terrorists. Secondly, I'm going to be talking to you about the nature of the prison program. The idea coming from opposition is that we're violating people's rights because we're impeding on their privacy. Number one, this assertion that that agents in NSA are some kind of perverted pedophiles because that are going to go through your photos is ridiculous. These are trained professionals who are there to protect you and your life in order for you to function properly in society. The idea behind this, is that they are able to collect information on terrorists via the prison program. Because let's talk about that idea. The prison program in itself is a method of foreign intelligence. The idea behind this is that we're collecting information to prevent terrorist attacks. We're collecting information to allow the government to prevent attacks on our people. We think that liberty, like I said, depends on security. Given that we've proven that privacy is intangential in this debate, and in this case, we believe that we are extending the rights of our citizens through the prison program. Because what we are doing is protecting them from terrorist threats. We think this is much more important than the only value they spoke about, which is privacy, which they couldn't even properly prove is important in this debate. Secondly, we think, we think that this idea is defended in liberal democracies because under the scheme of paternalism, which allows the state to step into certain context to remove certain rights in order to maximize your other rights in the greater scheme of things. We believe that it's for the greater good that the government has access to these kinds of information because we can protect your rights. We can protect you from attacks from terrorists, and this is what we need to do as government's responsibility. No, thank you. Privacy is not an issue here because all we're doing here is protecting the feelings of people. That is the most we can assume from their case. The most that we can assume from them is that maybe sometimes the government might not be able to appease people.
Due process, a right that is protected by the law of the Constitution of the USA. Another is the liberty is a right that is protected by the Constitution of the USA. The opposition failed to address that. If the government only cares about the security of the state, then why are the people allowed to carry guns? Isn't gun used for criminal purposes? Let me talk about my first argument. USA has a very big population, and each of its citizens holds so much information. This information may be too much for the NSA to handle. For sure, they would not be able to go through all the emails, text messages, and other electronic data that held by every citizen. Also, information are subject to analysis. NSA might have a different interpretation of these data. They might have a different interpretation of the conversations engaged in by the citizens. For example, if a person is researching about how to make a bomb, the NSA might think that that person is a terrorist, but in reality, he is only doing it for academic purposes. No, thank you. We can never be completely certain that their interpretation will always be right, and because of this, PRISM can be ineffective. This brings me to my second argument. Furthermore, PRISM is operated by employees and agents and therefore can be subject to human error. No, thank you. An example of this is the case of former CIA worker named Edward Snowden. He worked for CIA for 3 months. He was the one who exposed details about PRISM. If a new, low-level CIA worker who only worked there for 3 months managed to leak the information about PRISM to the public so easily and without getting anything in return. No, thank you. What guarantees us that a long-time CIA or NSA worker would not leak information to terrorists when offered with a high price? With this, can we say that we are truly secured? This poses a greater threat to national security and even to foreign countries. Let's move on to the third argument. PRISM can also affect the economy of USA negatively. There are business information that the business institutions would not want to disclose to the public, to the government, or to anyone. An example of this is intellectual property. Through the PRISM, it would be very easy for the government to access this data. There is also a risk that this will be lead to other business institutions. No, thank you. And because of this, business would not consider investing in USA. Also, we are now in the digital age. No, thank you. And commercial firms that are offering cloud storage are progressing. But because of PRISM, this industry can decline. Users of this will lose their trust in the integrity of cloud storage systems, and this will lead to a negative effect in the country's economy. And having said all these, we believe that PRISM should not be used. Yes.
We trust the government with tax information. We trust the government to carry out warrants. Are you saying we should get rid of them because there are possible failures of these systems?
Can you elaborate your question, please? Can you repeat it again?
Should we get rid of warrants just because there are possible errors that can happen?
Actually, yun nga yung point natin, di ba? Yung warrants. Gaya nga sinabi ng opposition, ang nagiging point ng opposition is, kailangan natin pagkatiwalaan yung government natin. Ibig sabihin, tinatanggal natin yung due process. And warrants is part of the due process. Us in the opposition, we believe that warrants are needed.
That we should celebrate the PRISM program because it is a data mining process and not a data mining program, and it does not monitor you. It will only collect information, and once there is a red flag, that is the only time they will go through your profile or your chat or your photos or anything. So are you willing to sacrifice the lives of people working in New York City rather than you showing your naked photos on Facebook? First of all, you agreed to their terms and policies, and therefore you're already subjecting your information to the private company, which is Facebook. So, are you willing, what is privacy? Privacy is your personal space. Are you willing to let your pride down? Or are you willing to risk the lives of people, your community, and your country? You said that we should not use the PRISM program because it will monitor everything we do and you are not comfortable with the bits and pieces of information that you have. But first of all, you posted it on the internet and you agreed to the terms and policies of that company such as Facebook, Twitter, and Skype. And again, we trust the government with our tax information. The government is there to protect us, and they're not there to appease you. They're there to protect you. It's for national security and not about privacy. The point you said about guns is intangential because here, again, we're talking about the security. Yes, there are guns, but that's irrelevant to this debate. Let's say that you said that the PRISM program invades privacy. And yes, the best thing you can assume that if the government does invade your privacy, it will only hurt your feelings. So feeling the lives of the people outweigh your feelings. So we are saying that the PRISM program is effective because it outweighs that the protection and the national security is better than your privacy and your own personal space. In this case, the government is allowed to curb your privacy and your rights to privacy for the protection of the greater good. So, using the PRISM program is being proactive. Okay, so we're preventing these terrorist threats. And again, it's already been tried and proven in London that using the Tempora program, there have been no bombings ever since.
Because both her and her deputy prime minister failed to bring up issues, failed to bring up new arguments, and this whole time they're still pushing on the fact that we're upholding national security. We'll listen to their rebuttals because obviously they have nothing new to say, and this is what I respond to. Because the main issues that we have here is about first privacy, because they're saying it's not important, but obviously they're just saying that so to make them have an easier time. Next, let's talk about the issue of security, because we believe that even we cater to that issue. So first, on the issue of privacy, they're saying that the only thing we're giving up is our pride. That we're just, who cares if we hurt your feelings? It's about national security. Let's look at other laws that the society tries to uphold. You guys, you're not allowed to give racial slurs, racial discrimination, because you hurt the feelings of people who get these slurs. But the thing is, it's still a right because they care about it. They care about the fact that your feelings. They care about that if we hurt your feelings, we'll be able to stop you from self-actualizing. Feel like you will be able to stop you from doing your best. Please sit down. Now let's look at this other thing on how we're just looking at FB, Skype, you know, these things are private companies. You already give up your information there. Exactly, you're only giving it up to Facebook. You're only giving it up to Skype or chat and things like that. But what about emails? These are the things that they'll be able to tap into. What about your phone calls? What about the intimate phone calls you have with your friends or people you care about? Sure, you may not want them to be, sure they may not necessarily be so important to you or the government, but who are you to say that this is not important? Who are you to say that my feelings shouldn't be affected so you guys can do a better job at protecting the society? Because really, if you were going to do better at providing national security, then you wouldn't have to resort to spying on your citizens. You wouldn't have to resort on making sure that you would have to get this PRISM thing. Because let's look at what PRISM and what they fail to realize, what my two parties have been saying the whole time. PRISM is not exactly effective. Sure, they may say that the program in the UK may be effective, but let's look at it. Sure, just because there haven't been any bombings doesn't necessarily mean that it hasn't really been working. Sure, let's look at the States. 9/11 happened, and sure, Boston happened last year, but there was like a 12-year gap. Does that mean that we should just keep doing the same thing? If we see that just because there haven't been any bombings recently doesn't prove that it works. They still have to point a correlation between the project and the bombings. A direct relation aside from just prove that it's a coincidence, yes.
The government has the right to invade on your privacy if you are suspected to be a terrorist through wiretapping. Or do you therefore concede that we should get rid of warrants just because your privacy is important?
Here, this is what you guys failed to notice from what we've been saying and what we've researched. PRISM allows the government to go through your information, your phone calls without a warrant for a week before. So that means, and that's what we were saying about due process, because they're just allowed to go through your stuff without a warrant, which respects your right, which proves that you are, or there's a high chance that you are a criminal. Please sit down. So aside from that, let's look about how the government even, let's go on to security. And let's see about this PRISM and whether it really works or not. Because we've already been saying that, sure, there's thousands of data that they're going to go through. How will they filter out all these data to make sure that it is the one? We respect warrants. If they really feel like that suspect is really a suspect and they have reasonable doubt, then that's status quo. That's status quo without the PRISM project. So which is why we think what they're defending is absolutely useless, because one thing that PRISM really focuses on being allowed to collect data even without a warrant. That's one of the things, that's what makes it different from other laws. Please sit down. So why we think that it's important to cater to this whole thing about security is if we're really trying to uphold security, what if it fails? What if someone gets to hack in and get all the information of the businesses, get the information of people's rights and things like that? So let's look at the two issues of this debate. So first, privacy, are basically just the rights of a person for due process, for it to be able to make them feel like they can actualize in the society, especially in a country with America, where they're all about freedom and justice. Now, let's also look about the case of security and how we're not really sure that this is effective, and how, in fact, the type of PRISM they're pushing is not PRISM, because they're still saying we need a warranty or reasonable doubt, which is what we're pushing, and which isn't what PRISM is pushing. So please, if you vote for a side, if you wish for a side where we uphold a person's dignity without and believe in society and the country, you'd vote for our side.